Welcome back, Starly viewers. Today, we are unpacking what is literally the ultimate cheat code for newborn health and early human development. We hear so much advice when it comes to raising a child, but it's rare to find a single practice that is so universally agreed upon by global health experts, and yet so frequently misunderstood. Okay, let's dive into this explainer and demystify the science, the incredible benefits, and the very real challenges surrounding exclusive breastfeeding.
Now, I want you to take a look at this number, 6. Pretty simple, right? But in the world of infant health, this single digit is everything. It represents the World Health Organization's absolute golden rule. They recommend exclusive breastfeeding for exactly the first 6 months of a baby's life. And guys, this isn't just a casual suggestion, it is a foundational pillar for ensuring healthy growth and development. But to really grasp why this timeline is so critical, we first need to understand what exclusive actually means in this context. Section 1. The 6-month rule. What exactly is it? Well, let's look closely at this baseline, because it's genuinely the most simple, natural, and highly effective start to life you could possibly give a child. You really have to notice the strictness of this definition. Exclusive breastfeeding means feeding an infant only breast milk. I really want to highlight that middle part for a second. No water, no other liquids, no porridge, no foods, none of it. The literal only exception made here is for prescribed medicines or essential supplements. It's incredibly common, for well-meaning family members to suggest giving a newborn a little sip of water, especially on a really hot day, but doing that actually breaks this vital rule. Breast milk is entirely sufficient all on its own. Which brings us to Section 2, superpowers for your baby. Let's look at the actual biological advantages here, because breast milk is essentially complete nutrition acting as a biological shield. So the crucial thing to understand is that breast milk isn't just food, it is dynamic medicine. It requires zero prep time, right? But it provides complete nutrition, literally everything a baby needs for those first 6 months. And beyond just calories, it acts as an unbeatable biological shield. It directly boosts the infant's immunity, actively protecting them against severe, life-threatening infections like diarrhea and pneumonia. It's basically a highly complex, customized medical defense system that is produced completely naturally.
And the developmental milestones it triggers are just as impressive. We're talking about active support for brain development and steady, healthy physical growth. By delivering the absolute perfect balance of nutrients, it directly reduces the risk of malnutrition and helps prevent stunting, which is when a child's growth is impaired due to poor nutrition. This natural resource truly, unequivocally gives infants the absolute best start in life.
Okay, Section 3, hidden benefits for moms. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this is a completely two-way street. We always hear about the baby, but the benefits for the mother are absolutely astonishing. Just look at the dual nature of these benefits. On one side, sure, you have the baby getting complete nutrition. But look over at the mother side of the comparison. Breastfeeding actively promotes faster physical recovery after delivery. It actually helps the uterus return to its normal size way more quickly. And, even more profoundly, it provides long-term disease protection, specifically lowering the mom's chances of developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer later in life. It's just a brilliant cycle of health. Plus, there's this built-in biological pause button called the lactational amenorrhea method. Basically, when a mother exclusively breastfeeds, it can actually delay the return of her fertility. It literally acts as a natural method for birth spacing. Add that to the fact that breast milk is always available, completely safe, totally free, and requires zero preparation, and you've got a system that is unbelievably convenient and cost-effective for families.
Which brings us to Section 4, the cost of alternatives. We need to take a brief, serious look at the why-nots here and explore exactly what happens when that 6-month rule isn't followed. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between following that golden rule and relying on alternatives. If you look at the right column, when infants are not exclusively breastfed, they face a seriously increased risk of infections. They have a higher risk of malnutrition and poor physical and brain development. And from a purely practical standpoint, because the baby ends up getting sick more often, families are hit with increased healthcare costs. The medical and financial tolls of alternatives are just super clear. Section 5, overcoming common hurdles. Let's shift gears a bit, because I want to acknowledge something super important. Just because something is natural definitely doesn't mean it's easy. For all our Starly viewers watching, it is so crucial that we validate these struggles. So many mothers deal with the intense stress of a perceived low milk supply, or they struggle early on with technique. But honestly, the biggest hurdles are often external. A lack of support from family or a workplace that just flat out doesn't accommodate a nursing mother can make this journey incredibly difficult. Throw in some deeply ingrained cultural beliefs and misconceptions about infant feeding, and it becomes so obvious why mothers need our deep empathy and support, absolutely not our judgment. So, even with the absolute best intentions, mistakes happen. I want to ask you directly, where do things most frequently go wrong in those first few crucial months?
Well, here are the most common pitfalls. Introducing water or porridge before that 6-month mark, massive mistake. Another one is skipping feeds or trying to force a newborn onto some strict feeding schedule instead of just following their natural cues. Using bottles or pacifiers too early can cause nipple confusion, and simply ignoring early breastfeeding difficulties instead of seeking help, that can derail the whole process. Remember, skipping feeds or giving even a drop of water before 6 months breaks that golden rule.
Section 6. Tips for breastfeeding success. Let's move to and see how this builds into real, highly actionable advice to empower mothers and their support networks. Think of this as your ultimate checklist for real-world success. Step 1. Initiate breastfeeding within the very first hour after birth to get things flowing. Step 2. Throw away the clock. Breastfeed on demand, day and night. Step 3 is all about mechanics. Making sure you have proper positioning and attachment prevents pain and ensures the baby is actually getting milk. Step 4 is our golden rule again. Firmly avoid water or any other foods before 6 months. And finally, Step 5, actively seek support from healthcare providers when you hit a wall. You do not have to do this alone. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought. Exclusive breastfeeding protects against disease, it promotes optimal growth, and it profoundly benefits both the baby and the mom. But success shouldn't just rest on the mother's shoulders. It requires the support of society. So, Starly viewers, knowing what you know now, how can you step up and better support the breastfeeding mothers in your workplace, your family, and your community? Thank you guys so much for learning with me today. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.